What's up guys, welcome to another video, and this video I'm going to discuss the latest update which occurred a couple of days ago. Alright, and also I'll be showing you one of the new features from the update as well. Also another thing, I'm trying to change my video settings for recording. Let me know how the quality is now, because I had a complaint last video, and like quality is something that's kind of difficult for my video settings, because what I use for recording I also use for streaming, and I can't use really high quality for streaming because my neck can't really handle it. But I'm trying to change it just for recording, so that I can just change it back when I need to stream or whatever. But anyway, let me know how the quality is in this video. Alright, so first off in the update, we have daily check-in changes. So Mystical Scroll has changed to 50 summoning stones. I feel this is good and bad. So it's good because summoning stones allow you to target something that's like whatever unit you want to summon more, right? So there's like a lower pool of monsters you can summon from. So if you're looking for something specific, you have a better chance in that. The downside is you have to wait until there's a rotation that you want to summon on, and especially for some of the like higher end players, they're only looking for very specific monsters, and you're just waiting week by week until you can summon for that, right? But I think for most people, it's a pretty nice change to have. And I was actually kind of surprised because Come To Us value summoning stones really highly. Like you can kind of tell because like Mystical Scrolls can drop in raids and dungeons and stuff, and summoning stones can drop too. But when you get a summoning stone drop, it's only like 3 summoning stones or something like that, right? And that's like such a small fraction of a summon compared to getting a Mystical Scroll drop. I would have liked them to have increased the summoning stone drop rate instead. Well, not drop rate, the drop quantity, I should say, because it's such a pain to spend your 8 or 9 energy for raids or dungeons and only get like 3 out of 50 of a summon, right? But I don't know. I think it's an interesting change. I don't really understand why they bothered to do that. I mean, it's one summon anyway, but oh, it's changed now. And the more important one though is this 30 energy reward after you've completed the check-in table, right? So after you get the Light Dark Scroll, previously you got nothing, right, for the next week until the month resets. Now you get 30 energy, and I think that's pretty nice. It's long overdue. They should have added that a long time ago, because it just felt bad just logging in and not getting anything. Even though it's only a small reward, but like at least you're getting something, right? Because for most of the month you're getting something every day, and it just feels odd that for a few days you can't. Now moving on, the new placement feature. So this is a new feature in raids. All right, this is for the 3-man raids. You can now, as the party leader, set a placement in one of the slots, and in that placement slot you can make another raid team of your own choosing, right, from your monsters. As only the raid leader can do this, right? Just important to take note. I would have liked them to allow you to assign the placement to someone, so that way, like, because you're the party leader already, you're doing all the work, and then not only that, you're also like adding the extra deck, right? I feel like the person that's joining, all he has to do is press ready, right, and that's it. Whereas the party leader, he's gotta wait for you to be ready, and then like start the raid for you, right? So I just feel that it should have allowed you to assign it to someone, but it doesn't matter that much. Now you don't get a bonus reward for the additional placement, but you also don't have to consume extra energy for that placement. So it's basically kind of like a free support unit, you know, every fight. Downside, obviously, you have to build a second team, and the hardest part of, for that is you can't use any duplicate monsters. And I feel they probably did this because it would have made it too easy to run like Katarina teams, because then you'd have to find one other person, and like I guess you probably just have to find someone that has Charlotte lead, most likely, because I guess Charlotte is probably the hardest unit to get for that team, that particular team. But you know, otherwise you could just run like 2 good Katarina teams and just do, you know, your 30-second runs or 12-second runs, however, depending on how good your teams are, and that would make it too easy, right? But I feel they probably should have allowed you to at least use one, because the real downside is for, you know, people who are not doing Katarina teams is you can't use Colleen in that placement, right? Because you're probably already running it in your main team, and therefore you have one team has to miss out on Colleen, and that's a pretty big disadvantage, because you're losing out on another consistent attack break, the heals, the heal block as well, and obviously the attack buff. That's a lot to lose for like one unit's provide. That one Colleen provides so much to a raid. But I mean, you can get around a bit. Like you have to use replacements. So I guess in a way it's good, because it means that you don't just automatically default to having a placement. It's more efficient still to get a second, like, or a third member to the party. But if you can't get the third member, then at least you can always run placements. And I'll go through the placement system in a second and show you just some alternatives, you know, for the second team that you can use. Now, the other change they did is the rune package. Previously, you could only on the first purchase, for like each time they release it, you'll get a guaranteed legendary 6-star rune, right? 1 out of however many they give you. I think it's 5. Now, for every rune package available, which is 10, you'll get 1 guaranteed 6-star legendary for each purchase. So this is nice for you know, people who are looking to, or spenders basically, obviously, right? So anyone who's looking to buy crystals, like you need a crystal top up, I think this is worthwhile to buy, because you compare this to other packages. The other packages will provide the same number of crystals for the same dollar value, which is $30 or 30 USD. Okay, and then on top of that, they will have a special additional reward, right? So they so for example, there's like the elemental package, which provides 5 like elemental scrolls of your choice, or the light dark pack, the summoning stone pack, which provides 170 summoning stones, etc. Right? Now, out of all of these rewards, I think the rune one is probably the best one. Now that they've changed it to include 1 legendary 6-star, right? Legendary 6-star is already pretty hard to get. I mean, there's a chance that you'll get a flat stat or like bad substat rolls, but in the end, runes are what is going to progress your count the most. And getting, like, because it's a guaranteed 6-star as well, right? The chances of getting like a decent or usable rune from this is much better than getting a 5-star from those summoning versions, right, of the packs, from like say the 5 elemental scrolls. The chances of you getting something useful from that is extremely low, whereas legendary 6-star rune, I mean, there's a fairly good chance it's going to be decent, right? Especially if you're picking violent, which I think most people will. Then yeah, so if you need a crystal top up, I would recommend this package over, you know, the other typical $30 ones. Alright, and then there's the lastly there's some display and effects modifications. Not much to talk about there. Alright, so we're gonna move to my raid team. So this is so these are my raid teams at the moment. So I'm using my alternate account for the third slot. I guess that's another benefit of this. It's like if you have two decent accounts and two devices, you could raid by yourself very easily, right? That's pretty convenient. Now I'll show you the teams in a second. This is just mid jump. So currently I'm using my safe team in the middle. This is my usual team. I think I featured it before. You've probably seen it on streams and like I'm pretty sure I did a video with raids before, and then the team was something like this. This is my safe team, and I'll show you like the other units in the other team on the next fight. But about to die soon. Okay. Actually, you can probably see a little bit here. So I think the main issue, right, is finding the alternative units that can provide, I think, the main debuffs, right? The main debuffs being attack break, heal block. I think these are probably the two most important, and then defense break and glancing. I think defense break probably the third most important, very close to like the top two. Then glancing, slow, and defense break. Oh, sorry, so glancing and slow are the next most important. Okay. Additionally, you also need to find a suitable attack power buffer. All right. So not everyone has Chasun, but I'll go through a couple of alternatives in a second. I'll show you the run again. Okay, so looking at the alternative team. Oh, so in addition to debuffs, obviously you need heals, but more importantly, you need another cleanser. Right now, my main cleanser is Lisa. Right, I think she's the best one. If you have an Anival, right, as well, then I would suggest using Anival as your second cleanser. I think she's probably the second best overall out of all the cleansers. And then, if you don't have, these Nat 4s, Nat 5s, the next one I recommend is Konomiya. I think Konomiya is the best, easy to access cleanser. Right? I mean, everyone is able to get one. It's a 2-star. It's farmable. It shows up in your magic shop every now and then. No excuse, not to have one, right? If you're already using Konomiya, then the other alternatives are Delphoid. Probably the best. It's probably the next best one in my opinion. And other alternatives are the Water Death Knight, which is Fedora, Ravidi, which is the Windhog, and there's also Jamie, which I'm going to talk about in a bit more detail later. Alright, once I show you my the skills on my one. Then for heals, Chasun is probably another go-to unit. She also provides attack buff, which is very good, obviously. And so if you need an attack buffer, you can use Chasun. If you need another an alternative healer that you don't have Chasun for, basically, you can also use Bella. Right, Bella I think is pretty underrated in R5. He actually has pretty decent base defense, right? And his base health is a little bit on the lower side, but I would say like below average, but it's not bad, right? He's pretty decently tanky. He also has very good base speed, right? So he's actually very easy to build for raids, and he's also got reliable defense break on first skill, which is very important. As I said, you do want all your units to provide some sort of debuff if you can, right? Like basically multiple purposes, and obviously everyone knows Bella heals really well. He's a smart healer too, if that's important to you. Okay, now as for heal blocks, the best ones are the Death Knights, right? The Death Knights all have skill 1 heal block. The other alternative is the Homunculus, right? So if you have a Homunculus built, I would recommend you use it for raids if you're looking for a heal blocker, and it's got one on skill 1. Okay, so this is the Wind Homunculus. It has to be the Wind one, and he's really good for the raid because not only he's got heal block, he also has slow and branding on second skill, and also defense break and branding on the third skill. Right, this is how I built mine, and I feel that he's probably one of the main units you would use as like a damage dealer on the second team. Even in your main team, he can be in your main team. He's really good for that too. Alternative damage dealers. So normally for me, I use the Water Kung Fu Girl as my main damage dealer, and then I have an alternative like a secondary damage dealer, which is usually either Hua, right, or the Wind Homunculus, right? Not everyone's gonna have Homunculus farmed, but I think if you're looking to do placement on R5, you probably would have already farmed the Homunculus, right? If you haven't, then I would probably recommend you get him. I think he's pretty good for this. Other alternatives is the Magical Archers. Ardella being the most easy to access one. She's actually really easy to build as well because her passive gives her passive crit rate, does a lot of damage, and more importantly is the first skill does harmful effect based on elemental advantage, right? Because she's neutral to the boss, because the boss is a dark unit, she'll do attack break for neutral element, which is obviously very important because that allows you to sort of replace Collein's first skill attack break. Gives you like a method of attack breaking, right, on the alternate team. If you happen to have the dark Magical Archer, she's also very good for this too. Not only does she have the same attack break on skill 1, she also has slow, I believe, on second skill. Let's see. Obviously, if you have Monkey King, you can use that for damage as well. And he's got defense leader. Okay. Otherwise, if you need a frontline unit, you can always use a Fire Panda who provides your defense leader anyway, farmable unit. So if you don't have Fire Monkey King, I would recommend the Fire Panda. Now, the other unit that you won't be able to share on two teams is sometimes people use like Deus, right? And sometimes they might need it for the damage reduction on the passive to help their team survive. Now, obviously, you can't run two Deus, but if you don't have it, well, the alternative basically to Deus is Darian, right? So also, if maybe your main team doesn't need Deus, right? If it's strong enough without Deus, that's fine. Your second team may not be as tanky though, so having something with the passive damage reduction is very helpful. So you can, if you don't have Deus, you can use Darian. Darian is farmable, easy to get. He's also really good for raids anyway because he's got oh, this is a good rune, good grind. He's got defense break skill 1, right, and attack break skill 2. So I mean, Deus also provides attack break on skill 2, so he's like very similar in that regard. Obviously, you're missing out on heal block though, so if you need another heal blocker, I would recommend something like Fedora, which is the water version. He's like he can be a secondary cleanser while also adding debuffs, right? So he can be a frontline doing those roles. He's not as good as a main cleanser because his cleanser on 5-turn cooldown. I think I would recommend if you're only using a single cleanser, it should be a 4-turn cooldown or 3-turn cooldown. So that's one of the reasons why I like Kodamiya. Going back to him, is he's got a 3-turn cleanse, right? So he can do it pretty often. So he's very strong for that. He does not provide any debuffs, which is unfortunate, but he heals and cleanses. I think that's good enough. He's providing 2 roles already. He can be in front line if you run 4-man, but you'll need to give him some decent defense. And it's fairly easy to give him good HP because he's got good base HP. But if you're only running 2-man frontline, you can do something like Darian plus Fire Panda and just put Kodamiya in the back line. That's fine as well. So now Delphoid is the other alternative to for cleanser. You can I'll recommend make sure she's skilled up. Right, she only needs 1, for the third skill, which is so it's pretty easy to get, right? Or should be easy to get, but depending on your luck. But it provides heals and the cleanse as well. So that's another alternative. Let's see. If you're desperate, you can also use Brian in the front line. I don't recommend him because the revive is kind of useless. But if you just need a debuffer, like you just need a heal block and attack break, then you can use him in the front line. So yeah, that's an option. Okay, now if you don't have a secondary attack slow debuff, right? So you have Hua, right, for one team, but you don't have another one for the other team. You can use Rigel in the other one. I would recommend Rigel out of all the liches, because I think his passive is a bit more useful than Fuko's one, and otherwise he provides all the skills you need anyway. So first skill does slow, which is really good, right? It does 2 to 3 hits, and second skill is a defense break. Now this does quite a lot of damage actually, because all the attacks will go onto the one target, whereas otherwise sometimes, like if you have multiple units, he might attack. He might spread the attacks out. But when there's only one unit, he'll do all attacks on one, and it's pretty good damage. So that's an alternative there. Stella is another good damage dealer alternative. A lot of people use her. She's got pretty good base health and I would say below average defense, but you can make her survive in the backline fairly easily, I think. And the reason to use her is not only does she do really good damage with the third skill, but she also has defense break skill 1 and branding on second skill. Okay, now this is Jamie. Jamie, I feel, is a bit underrated for raids, and he's a good alternative, for the placement team. So for the placement team, he can be your cleanser, right? This third skill does cleansing on a 3-turn cooldown, and it also buffs attack power at the same time. So he can provide those 2 roles for your team, and he's a damage dealer, right? So he does ignore defense, and he can do a lot of attacks with chain fire. He doesn't do any debuffs though, which is the downside, but you can afford to have like one unit that doesn't really do that much debuffs, so he's an alternative. If you don't economize heals, then maybe you can consider Jamie. Okay, and especially because if you don't have like a Jasun attack buff and you happen to have a Jamie, then you can use Jamie as your attack buffer. Another alternative attack buffer is Hua He. So Hua He does Amuse, right? She scales off attack power, but she'll probably need to be in the back line because to make her tanky front line and heal for enough healing power, then she would need a lot of stats, right? But if you put her in the back line, she doesn't need as much defensive stats, and therefore you can stack a bit more attack power on her to heal for more. Now I've been asked before, is Hua He worth using if you don't have skill ups? And the answer, in my opinion, is no. I would only recommend you to use her if you can skill her up. And basically, the first ability and third ability don't need to be skilled up that badly. It's mostly the Amuse that needs to be skilled up. So as long as Amuse is maxed, I think she's perfectly fine to use in raids and also raid base. Okay, another alternative here is Tessarion. So Tessarion can provide resist lead if you need it, right? Not everyone's gonna have Praha, not everyone's gonna have DS, but I think a decent amount of people are gonna have Tessarion, right? You should be farming for all 3 Ifrits anyway with your guild points. So he's an alternative resist lead. He can be built on as a damage dealer. He does have pretty decent base attack, and his first ability scales off speed, so he does pretty decent damage, and he's got a defense breaking skill too. So he's actually not that bad for raids, but you have to build him as a DPS for raids to make him useful. You can still use him as a tank if you want for frontline maybe, but he'll need some decent base. He'll need some decent defense substats to tank frontline, or just build him as like a speed HP defense type build. Okay, who else is there? I think that's it for the units that I have built. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I've covered most of the units that are commonly used. So I'm going to leave it there. If you have any other questions, any units that you're unsure of that you could use, feel free to let me know, and I'll answer you as soon as I can. So I hope you enjoy the placement feature. I feel that if you can farm R4, right, with placement, I think it's worth it. R4 is worth farming. So even if you have to give up, the drop quality for that, I think it's worth. If you eventually are going to need the grindstones to improve your runes to allow you to push up to R5 anyway. But once you get to R5, yeah, making a placement team, in my opinion, is pretty difficult, but it's definitely doable. Okay, so it would just depend on your rune quality and whether you can afford to give the runes to these units, right? Like a lot of these units here, I don't really use in other areas apart from. Actually, no. These ones, I just so happen to be able to use them in other areas. But I don't know. Some people may not be able to use them in other areas, and therefore they need to, dedicate runes to those units. Alright, so that's it from me. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.